I'm gonna go ahead.
Welcome to Women Thriving Unapologetically with Lynsie McKeown. Over the next hour, you will hear raw, honest, and inspiring conversation between Lynsie and her guests, discussing how to thrive, live joyfully, and abundantly in spite of life's challenges. Now, here is your host, Lynsie McKeown.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Women Thriving Unapologetically. I'm your host, Lynsie McKeown, and you are listening on Voice America's Empowerment Channel. And today's show is sponsored by me. Okay, so if you are wanting to change the trajectory of your life and do not know how and you want support, then be sure to go to my website, lynsiemckeown.com, and check out the upcoming Sankalpa immersion, where I will guide you through the yogic process of aligning with the unseen forces of your heart, help you dissolve those inner obstacles that get in the way of your happiness, and help you manifest from a place of rest. I mean, how awesome would that be to be rested and be able to be manifesting from a deep place of nourishment? And so we begin our journey in February. So be sure to go there, sign up. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me, of course, on thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. And so today we have a really special show for you. A dear friend of mine and colleague will be joining us here shortly to talk about how we can cultivate inner peace, like our own special version of it. And it's not the version that we're comparing ourselves to with others, because as you know, if you compare yourself to others, then it just squashes all of your joy. There's no peace in that. So she's going to share with us her own process for that and how it's helped her create a life that's full of love and a new job, a child, and all these beautiful things. So let's just take a moment before we invite her onto the show to take a moment to stop and pause and breathe. So wherever you are, and if it's safe, take a moment to be still, whether you're sitting down or standing up. And if you want, you can place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. Close your eyes if that's okay. And let's just take several deep, full breaths. As we know, when we just stop for a moment, it doesn't even have to be for very long, just long enough to take these conscious breaths into our body, what begins to happen is that we move from the outer distractions of our life and we move to this inner stillness, this place that can be the abode of our peace, our own version of peace. And then what would that look like for you? What would peace really look like for you? I'm just sensing that in the abode of the body. And let's take another deep breath in and out. Then come back to this at any point in your day where you just need to move away from the distraction, when you need to find a moment of peace. And let's go ahead and make our way back so that we can invite this amazing woman onto the show. Her name is Leah Kinsella, and I've known Leah for several years now. And I met her some time ago at a yoga immersion, and I was very just in awe of her ability to be so strong in her vulnerability and sharing some things that she was going through with a group of, I don't know, 60, 80 people. There are so many people there, but she, wanted such deep change in her life. She was willing to put herself out there and really share some deeply personal things so that she could get the guidance that she needed to make big shifts in her life. And that always stood out to me. And she's a meditation teacher, a para yoga Nidra teacher as well. And she is an ICF coach, and she's a graduate from the Search Inside Yourself Institute. And she's a creator of the pregnancy deck, which we're going to talk about on the show as well, because a beautiful oracle deck for pregnant mamas. So welcome, 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 Leah.
Hi, and thank you, Lynsie. It's so lovely to be here, and thank you for having me. And thank you for that really nice intro. It was like your little practice, the peaceful practice. It's nice to be guided, especially by someone we know. It's really sweet. So thank you.
I know,
Yeah.
especially as a meditation teacher, you have your own practice. And oftentimes I would imagine that it's nice to have someone else guide you instead of
Yeah.
always doing the self-guidance.
Yeah, no, for sure. It is. It's sort of like you can sit in the passenger seat, you know,
Kick your feet up.
kick your feet up, which is nice. It's nice to do that. So thank you. And it sets the tone. You know, I already feel like, okay, then the nervousness is gone. I always get a little nervous when I'm about to, even when I teach, even though I've been teaching for, my God, like 15 or more years. I always, even right before class, which is so funny. I've taught thousands of hours and I always need to take a deep breath. I never
Oh,
lost that.
absolutely. I mean, I
Yeah.
do this, the drop in for every single show because I really want the listeners to let this become a habit. Every time they come to the show, they know, oh, I'm going to take a moment to stop and pause and breathe. And so that they start to understand in their own bodies that it can be so simple. Yet I'm also doing it for myself because I'm nervous. I mean, we're doing live radio.
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
it
We can't
enables
forget
me to
that.
connect to you, to the other guests, and also to the listeners. It's just a beautiful way. And so I'd love for us to go ahead and drop in together and dive into this topic of meditation. I'm sure there's many, many people out there, and I'm not excluding myself, that the first time we come to meditation, it's not easy and it's confusing because there's a lot of information out there as to what meditation is and what it should be and what you should expect from it. And I'd like to hear from you what your perspective is of what is meditation and how do you know, like, when you're
Hmm.
doing it.
Yeah. No, those are two very clear questions. And let me think how I'll start here. So I'm fortunate because I've taught a lot of beginners. When I worked at the larger wellness centers such as Canyon Ranch or the Four Seasons, I would get a lot of hotel guests that, you know, they were there because it was a wellness center and they wanted to try meditation. So in a way, I feel really blessed because I handled a lot of people who had those exact questions. You know, how do I know that I'm meditating? I have a lot of thoughts. My mind's really busy. I can't meditate. I would get a lot of that, you know, but they would show up and they would try. So um, when we're first looking at the idea of meditation, there's a lot of research out there, and you're absolutely right. So it's kind of like you're thinking, people are often going, oh, I know this practice could benefit me. Somebody told me. I'm really stressed. I'm going through X. You know, I have this in my life. Someone said meditation could help me. My therapist, my friends, someone. So people are coming to the practice with this kind of idea, this general idea that meditation is good for them, but they haven't practiced. They don't really know. So then they get an app, you know, whether it's Calm, whether it's Insight Time or whatever. They listen to a practice and they're like, okay, someone just told me to relax. And I'm supposed to follow this blue light and I'm supposed to listen to this mantra. And I have no idea what I'm doing, but hey, someone told me it would benefit me. So I guess I'm meditating. And, you know, a person might try that for a little while. But then a little bit more curiosity gets them and they go to maybe a yoga class, or maybe these days there are actually meditation centers that are showing up, and they might actually sit down with a seasoned teacher and the experience may be completely different. And then they're like, wait, that was different than the app. What is meditation? What did I just experience? And so I can see why it is confusing for people and that they might start and then they'll stop. And really having a teacher can be so beneficial, because someone like myself or even Lynsie, like people like myself who I've taken years of my life to not only learn how to meditate, but I've also studied. So ideally, I'm shepherding the student through their own questions as to, you know, what is meditation? Well, first of all, meditation is simply, it's an act. We're not sleeping. We are focusing in a very calm way on our overall sense of being. And we're using something such as our breath. I like to call it an anchor, to continuously just come back to. We're going to have thoughts. It's perfectly normal to have thoughts. Actually, it would be weird if you weren't completely having thoughts, especially the first time, because you might be just have gone back to sleep. So we're using practices and tools that allow us to witness and continuously come back to a base, our anchor. How do you know if it's working? Well, it may not be. You may just simply feel really relaxed when you're meditating, and it may feel akin to a sort of a sleepiness, especially in the beginning. But with time, as you're practicing, you're alert, you're awake, yet you're conscious of a feeling of peace or a feeling of a sense of calm within yourself. And that I'll segue into that, what that feeling of peace and calm means to you in a moment. But just to stay on point, our version of meditation and how we practice is going to really come from the teacher and the type of practices that we're listening to. So utilizing a tool and a practice that works for you. In the beginning, as I said, it may just feel like a sense of calm, but with time, once we give ourselves time, once the student gives themselves time, and by this, I mean, it could be a month, it could be a year. But meditation is cumulative. So it could be 3 minutes a day, it could be 5 minutes a day, but I really recommend doing it consistently because it starts to build on itself and you start to develop neural pathways that recognize this habit, this feeling of peace, this feeling of calm, this feeling of, oh, I'm not in my reactive mind. I can take a deep breath and calm. We have more control of our senses and our emotions because when we sit to meditate, we're ultimately taking a bird's eye view of ourselves. And then when we're back out into the world with time, how do you know if the meditation is working? Honestly, I think for the most part, it shows up in our day-to-day life. It shows up when we're talking to our partners, our business, ourselves, ultimately, waiting in line at the grocery store, whatever it is, it shows up in like the minutia of our lives that, hey, I feel more at peace. I know that I have a reservoir inside of myself because I've been doing these practices. And that's when you know it's working. So sometimes when we sit down to meditate on our cushion in a chair, however you do it, it may not feel like it's working, quote unquote, but it is. It's happening and it's working on a subconscious level. And that's really what I'm here to support my students and clients with, is to give them more consistent feedback that and journaling exercise and things like that, just to show them and help them answer those questions. So that was a really long answer. Sorry if I
No, it was
rambled on a bit.
so beautiful. And I really appreciate everything that you said. And I hope my mom is watching. My mom listens to every single one of my shows. So
Oh,
she
that's
is
nice.
just so lovely. And she listens to it live. She makes sure it's in her calendar. So I hope she's not missing this one. Because we actually had a talk this morning. She was asking me like, what was the show on? And we were talking about meditation. And my mom and I started going to Unity Church many, many years ago. And that's where I first started to learn how to meditate because they included it into the service.
Mm-hmm.
And we would talk about it and we would try to practice at home. And we even took a workshop together on how to meditate. And she got really frustrated. And we talked about it a little bit this morning. She's like, I could never do it because my mind was just going crazy all the time. And I'm like, well, she's like, I can't get my mind to be quiet. And I think that's one of the things that people think, that they're going to do meditation and their mind's going to get completely quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I constantly have to remind my students, I'm sure you're reminding yours, that it's not about quieting the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that even in that moment that you're meditating, you might feel like it's not working because the mind is going to go all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I love how you said that it's working because you are changing at this deeper level that it will show up in your daily life.
Mm-hmm.
And that you become less reactionary and you're like, oh, wait a second, I have a little bit more peace around this. Or like, for example, you can go home for the holidays and like, oh, I have a little bit more peace around my family.
Right. That's a big one.
Yeah,
That's our ultimate test.
But it is that I love how you said it's cumulative. And I had this vision of like a snowball building.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're just
Mm-hmm.
doing it here and there, it's more like little snowflakes.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it consistently, it just builds and builds and builds, and you have this momentum going. So thank you for all of that. That was just a really beautiful explanation. And So let's talk a little bit more about the consistency and the importance of that, and perhaps
Mhm.
even the importance of having some accountability around that. Like, how do you create the accountability
Mm.
around a practice that leads to the consistency, that leads to the results of having more peace in your daily life?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's probably, when we're all left to our own demise, I shouldn't use the word demise, but our own wishes, unless, some people are super goal oriented, and I'm always like, wow, I love that. But that's where joining a class or a group, I think, helps, because sometimes when you pay for something, honestly, you're just more likely to show up. And if you can join a community, like when I lead my 6-week series, I put everyone in the class in a WhatsApp group and I start chatting with them every day right away. I might be just sending them a tip or something. Um, and just having live interaction to have feedback, to ask questions, to share things like, hey, this worked for me, this didn't work for me. That would probably be an ideal situation, just to have that accountability. If it's not there, then I really love taking something like a calendar, or if it is an app, sometimes apps will often have their own little 21-day challenges. I know Oprah and Deepak Chopra used to do a free 21-day challenge. There's so many out there now. So it's a nice way to implement the accountability if you're having a hard time, if the person is. But if, you're like, okay, I'm committed and you're going to do it, you can't join a class, you don't want to join a 21-day challenge, but internally you feel, okay, I'm really committed to this, then I really recommend journaling, and witnessing and giving yourself opportunities to notice, like I said, in the grocery line, when you're talking to your partner, do the practices. Might not be at the same time every day. That's okay. Maybe you're using an app, maybe you're using something free, but commit to yourself, as you sounds like someone may already do it. And then maybe write it down, create some sort of a tracker so that you can see, and then notice what's happening in your normal life. How is it benefiting you? Start, maybe your own 21-day challenge. And I think it's possible when we do that to also hold ourselves accountable and to recognize the benefits that the practice is going to have.
And of course, if it's difficult, if you struggle with, holding yourself accountable, that's where you can reach out to someone such as yourself and say, hey, will you guide me? Will you be my accountability partner in this?
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
because, I think it's easier for us now, like having practiced for, decades, that to say, oh, just, create some accountability. But I do know that for some, with their busy lives and the frustration that you can feel sometimes at the beginning of meditation, that and not being able to get the immediate results that we've been conditioned in our society to to want,
Yeah. Yeah.
that it can be really challenging to say, okay, I'm going to do this every single day.
Mm.
If I'm not feeling something immediately and getting
Mhm.
something out of it immediately. And
Sure.
so the accountability of a coach um, can be extremely beneficial. I mean, I've experienced that for myself, not for meditation, but for other things. I'm like, oh wow, I'm much more present, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm the good student wants to come out.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's why I love even the series that I'm running currently, the women that have showed up, like they're both really busy, and they know that this is time for themselves. And it's like that in itself is a gift. And so, recognize that meditation ideally is not a chore. It's not it's not going to the grocery store, it's not, going to the dentist. It's a good thing. It's something that, I mean, not that going to the dentist is a bad thing, but we're just, if we can reframe how we think about taking 5 minutes out of a 24-hour day, 10 minutes out of your day for yourself is going to impact the rest of your day. If we can kind of reframe how you look at it, I think it will greatly impact how a person enters the practice and the commitment. And then, yeah, that's what I'm there to do, is to help them
And I
show
like
up.
that reframe, that it's not one more thing. If you have a tremendously long to-do list and you're like, oh, now I have to add meditation in, but it is that reframe that, oh, this is going to potentially make the rest of my day more easeful and help
Mm-hmm.
perhaps even give me more clarity so that I don't feel so overwhelmed, or I can have sharper focus on the things that I do need to get done, and having that reframe. So I can't believe we're already up to the break already. I love talking about meditation. So just like the time is flying. So we're going to take a short break, and when we get back, I'd like to dive more into where, what a meditation coach is and what you can get out of having a coach, but also like, where, what are the real benefits? Like we've talked a little bit about it, but we can tap a little bit more into that if you're open to that, Leah.
Of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay, so if you're listening, be sure to go over and join our Women Thriving Unapologetically Facebook group, because there you get to watch all the shows and you get to hear more about what the guests are offering us each week and sharing more in the group. And that's Women Thriving Unapologetically Facebook group. And we'll be right back after this show.
All right, perfect. All clear. Back in 2.
Okay, how you feeling?
Good. Yeah. Sorry. I feel like I ramble, so I'm just trying
No, it's great. No, I think
Okay.
your answers are so thorough, and just, you're bringing in a lot of the you're hitting a lot of points that I feel like people have questions around. And I love having a conversation with a guest that I don't have to extract things out of. You just know it. And it just shows how much you understand this. Like it's really just part of who you are now, and it just flows out of you. So
Oh, thanks.
I
Yeah.
think that's
Thank you.
just beautiful, because it just is really representative of all the time and effort that you put into
Yeah. No,
your
thanks.
practice and your craft. Yeah.
It's become, I know, right? It's like, it is, gosh, we could go into so many different directions. I mean, over the pandemic, I was like, do I really want to do this anymore? But then I'm like, I have to.
Mm, yeah.
I'm changing it in terms of how it's delivered, but yeah, I've just been doing this for so long. Like I want to support, I want to give it my gifts to others and just give them the space to feel or grow into that sense of peace, as we've touched on. I think we'll touch on that, and we'll get into it more. Kind of, what is that? What is your version of peace? How do you know?
Yeah.
How do we define it? But it's all good. It's all good. I think we kind of have to change. I look at some of the people that were teaching, like that I used to work with at some of the old resorts for like 25 years. And I was like, I can't do that. I cannot show up for my 8 a.m. class like 6 days a week anymore. Like I need to switch how I deliver these practices, because I didn't feel like I was a good teacher. I felt like I was running on, 20% instead of 100 or 80, whatever. And that's not good.
Yeah.
I'm like a recording. Press play. Okay, Leah.
All right, coming back.
We're heading back now. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
You are listening to Women Thriving Unapologetically with Lynsie McKeown. Have a question for Lynsie or her guests? Want to share your story? Email Lynsie at thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. That's thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. Now back to the show. Here again is Lynsie.
Hello, and welcome back to Women Thriving Unapologetically. We're having an amazing conversation with Leah Kinsella on how to find our own version of peace. And the methods that we're talking about in order to find that inner peace is primarily meditation. And I love this topic because it's really something that has really brought me closer to understanding who I am and what I'm meant to bring forward in the world. And so, Leah, what has been your personal experience with meditation? What are the benefits that you've seen for yourself personally?
Yeah, that's a good, I know people often ask me that, like, why do you meditate? You're the teacher. Oh gosh, it's like, it's changed so much over the years, because the beautiful thing about meditation is that it changes with us, when I first started meditating, like literally the first practices were, oh God, when was that? Like 2005, maybe. Someone gave me a CD. And I was going through a breakup at the time, and I was like, maybe it'll help me. And it did, but excuse me, I had no formal tangible practice. And it wasn't until about 2009 when I met my teacher, and I was guided through a live class. And I just remember being like, oh, this feels nice. Like, this is I feel calm. I feel whole. I feel less anxious. I feel confident. And in a good way, and my body just felt like, it wasn't, like you shake up a bottle of water and the bubbles, like I felt like all the bubbles had settled and the water was calm. And I was like, this feels nice. And I like literally was hooked. But it didn't happen overnight. In the beginning, I joined, I started meditating just because I was like, I don't know, it feels good, but I wasn't consistent. And then I did a few retreats where I had, the good fortune to actually go on meditation retreat for 3, 4, 5 days over the course of a few years. And then I started teaching it. I think I started teaching like really fast, like 2010. And I all of a sudden was like, oops, I should probably practice more if I'm going to teach this. Because I'm just that kind of teacher. I don't half-ass it. And so I started committing to what's called a sadhana, or like these 40-day practices where I literally would practice the same practice for 40 days, or sometimes it would turn into 6 months. And I locked into these very traditional tantric yogic practices that were, some of them are sort of complex, but initially I was honestly doing it because I wanted to be a better teacher. That's my honest answer. I don't think I knew quite why yet. I honestly think my why emerged, like I said, like once you start practicing, it starts emerging in different ways. And some of I was probably, how old was I? I was like 33, 34, yeah, around that. So, I was still young in the sense of like, I was still drinking and I was still partying, and then I would go home and meditate. Like, did it make sense? I don't know, but I was doing it anyway, because I guess I still felt good. I still felt, okay, I feel peaceful. Now let me go out and drink. I don't know. It's kind of ridiculous, but I'm just being honest. And then later, toward closer to my 40s, I would say I started doing some deeper reflections, because I hit a wall of depression around like 40. And I was like, you know what, this is where I don't feel as depressed and I don't feel as anxious. So I would meditate, and this is just being really personal, because it allowed me to have more self-love and more self-confidence, because at that time I was going through a really vulnerable stage. And now fast forward, again, I'm giving you these really long answers. But as I've changed, my practice has changed. And honestly, my meditation practice, it's like, it just gives me so much. Like I can think before I speak. I feel into my emotions, and I give myself compassion. I give myself space to let go of my past. I give myself space to be forgiving. I give myself space to just go, you know what, like don't sweat the small shit as much. Like let you feel into the bigger space of life. The world, the universe is huge. Meditation actually will give you this perspective if you allow it to. And today I meditate because it's like it's woven into my helix, my DNA, and it allows me to breathe as the woman that I am today. So my answer went from really simple to that. So,
it allows me to breathe into the woman that I am.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just such a beautiful answer. And just the evolution of a practice, the consistency, allowing it in the practice and allowing it to open you up to reveal who you are and to accept yourself, and through the self-love, and to develop confidence. And I mean, all of those things that you listed, I think everyone can benefit from thinking, like really feeling into what our emotional response is, and thinking before we speak, and having the self-compassion which is incredibly healing for women, for us to be able to have compassion for ourselves
Yeah.
and to let go of the past. I mean, like, seriously, that's a big one.
It's huge,
I'm
huge.
still working on that one.
No, for sure.
It's,
Yeah, no, it's not overnight.
but it's all these different layers. It's like it's like we don't get everything all at once. It's just like I always use the analogy of an archaeological dig. We're just going one layer at a time, and eventually we start to see the bigger picture of what we're uncovering, and what we're uncovering is who we really are. And I really do appreciate your honesty about, like, oftentimes we start meditating and we're still very much in our old ways of being. Like when I first started, you know, going to Unity Church and learning how to meditate, I was still bartending. So I was still
Right. You're still
drinking.
drinking.
I was still doing drugs,
Yeah.
I was but I showed up every Sunday because there was
Mm.
something there in that spiritual message, and specifically in the meditation, that was drawing me in. So was I proud to be the person that was hung over at the back of the back of the room? No, but there was
You were
something.
there.
I was
Yeah.
there, and I was
Yeah.
creating the consistency, and there was something about the practice that was drawing my heart back to itself again.
Mm-hmm.
And so
It's like your higher self was calling you, going, Lynsie, over here. And you're like,
yeah,
okay, fine, I'll show up.
fine. I just went to bed 2 hours ago, but I'm coming.
I'll be there.
But it created resilience. It
Mm.
really, and you're talking about the 40-day practice. I just started one 4 days ago, and here we are. Like, and it is a commitment, and
Yeah,
all the
it
stuff
is.
still comes up after all these years. Like, oh, I'd rather not get up at 3:30 so I could fit this in.
Yeah.
But I'm doing it
Yeah.
because I know now that it is creating a deeper groove. And so, I mean, people like, just want to re-emphasize like what you said about how it just brings a sense of peace and understanding of who you are. And so how do we know what our version of peace is?
I know that's like, I've come to this awakening in myself, I suppose, in my 40s, like, and also through the years of guiding people, is because I'll often get, people that say, I don't know if I'm doing it right. I'm following these practices, I'm doing the thing, I'm showing up, and I don't know, it's just not working. And it's like, that's discouraging. Of course it is. So what I've really taken upon myself as a teacher is to allow, yes, the practices. It's like a roadmap, right? We're going to get from point A to point B. There might be a few different ways to get there, but ultimately we have to follow these particular points along the way. The meditation practices is that, it's giving us directions to get to point B, but I speak collectively, our feelings, our thoughts, our experiences, our bodies, our aches, our pains, our joys, they're ours. So what we're going to experience along that journey, what we're going to see, some people might see one thing, some people might see another thing, some people might think, some people might feel. It doesn't matter. What we're all experiencing, we're the only ones that are going to know what calm feels like to us. I can tell you, I can guide you, I can paint a picture for you, I can play special music for you. But really what you feel like, what your version of peace feels like, it's a beautiful thing, and it belongs to you. You were born with it. You literally came out and you have it in yourself. So as a teacher, as a meditation coach, I'm just here because luckily I've studied, I have the tools, I have the techniques, I have the roadmaps to get you to point B. But, the feelings, as I said, the experiences, I really encourage everyone that I teach to give themselves space to feel and to notice and to accept. I accept that this today feels like blank. I accept. It doesn't have to be what the teacher is saying, it's your definition. And because especially in the type of meditation that I've been taught, we use a lot of landmarks in the body. For example, we might use the tip of the nose or the space at the forehead, or maybe it's the heart, or, so we're using these landmarks. And maybe I'm telling somebody, feel into your heart. And someone might go, I can't feel it. I'm feeling something way out here. you know what? Awesome. You're feeling something, you're noticing something, notice where that allows you to feel calm. Maybe that doesn't work. Okay, then let's go to the breath. Let your breath feel peaceful and calm to you. What does that feel like? Let's refine the breath to the point that you're like, oh, this is hey, I'm breathing and I feel my own breath in my body. And you know what? I actually like it. Because some people, they've literally never slowed their breath down, and they've never spent some time just enjoying it and noticing it. And it's like, I really think the breath is like the gateway. It's like once we start to feel our breath in our body and feel, and also go, my breath is calming, my breath is relaxing. Because again, you're the only one that's going to know what that feels like. I'm going to help you. I'm going to count with you. I'm going to give you different this, that, that. But if your breath is jagged and you're tense and you're still doing counting to 4, but you're super tense, is that relaxing? No. So I'm really there as your guide to give you an opportunity to feel the experience in your body and recognize, oh, I get it. I get what my version of peace feels like. It's not hers, it's mine. And that is so empowering, because that's ultimately what's going to stay with the person moving forward.
Wow, I love that because, excuse me, because we have studied similar meditation techniques, and there are always these guideposts which are really great, and yet you're giving them permission, like, okay, I'm just giving this guidepost, but if it doesn't feel right in your own body, then don't try to achieve something that is really yours to embrace in that moment, because it's just a guidepost, and we live in a culture like, okay, I'm supposed to feel this way, or I'm supposed to count to 6 on my inhale and then hold it for 6 and then exhale for 6, but that's causing me stress because I haven't developed the capacity yet to breathe that deeply.
Yeah.
And I have difficulty releasing and surrendering into my breath on the exhale. So how can we adjust that so that there is that sense of, okay, and there's no shame because, oh, I didn't make it to 6, I'm only here at 2. But it's
I know.
but it's just like, okay, but it's about feeling that, what I'm understanding you to say is to feel that sense of peace where you can feel that natural rhythm, and then you can expand on that instead of trying to force ourselves into something that doesn't quite fit, and then we're never feeling comfortable.
Yeah. And I think that's where, again, having a teacher helps, because you can ask me the questions, or we can unpack the practice right afterwards. Whereas like with an app, you don't really get that. I mean, granted, I'm like, use all the tools that are out there. And sometimes it might be just a remembering, maybe we go back to some situations where you're at your happiest, and what does that feel like? Where do you feel it in your body? Maybe we just do some journaling around that. Because again, I'm assuming that we all have a sense of what we know when we feel calm, when we feel at peace. And I also, this is taking me in a slightly different direction, but I also think, sometimes people think meditation is going to relax them so much that they won't be productive, or like their sense of peace is going to keep them from being the CEO. And I don't agree with that, because when we're being run by our mind, when we're being run by our adrenals, and we're being run by adrenaline, excuse me, we're just burning ourselves out. So it's actually, you're recharging yourself. You're giving yourself an awareness of, maybe it's steadiness, maybe peace is not the right word. We can play with the semantics of it, but it's like utilizing and recharging our batteries, finding stability so that we are better CEOs or moms or whatever that is. But it's ultimately about creating a sense of steadiness and stability, so that we just show up. We show up in a more vibrant and alive way.
Yeah, to be able to show up in that more vibrant and alive way, and also just to be able to be steady, so that if you are aiming to be that CEO, or you're a busy mom because you have so much on your plate, that you can actually be calm and centered and focused while you're having to do all navigate through all of those challenges instead of being swept up in the chaos and feeling burnt out or frazzled or just so distracted you can't even remember, your middle name. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. I was like, what can I remember? I can remember my middle name, but there's a lot of other things I can't remember. So we are coming up to our last break in the show, but when we come back, I'd love to talk to you a little bit about, talk to the busy moms out there a little bit and how they can bring in some of these practices into their overfull lives, and also just your journey about your pregnancy journey over 40. So we can talk a little bit to the moms out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
So again, if you want to join the Facebook community, Women Thriving Unapologetically, we live stream every week and our show into there so you can watch and post questions, but you can also get guidance throughout the week based on the topics of the show. So that's Women Thriving Unapologetically Facebook group. And we'll be right back after this short break.
All right, great segment. All clear. Back into.
So is that okay for you to finish? Because we want to squeeze in, like, I really want to get to your pregnancy deck.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's good. And I'm just realizing, like, I have a couple of people that I will send you, because this is so great, Lynsie. It's so nice, and you're such a good host, and more people should see this, or listen. It's so organic, like the way we're flowing. It's nice. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of structure, but it's really nice. So
yeah, I feel it's what's meant to come through me right now. And so if you have recommendations for people to be guests, or you want to share the show, and everyone that's listening, if you share the show, we can grow it, and we can make sure that we keep bringing on amazing guests and bringing out that support for all the women, because we're currently in, I think each show is reaching about 12 to 15 countries. So we're starting to spread and spread that message of, thriving unapologetically, which really means just to listen to your heart and stand by that. And nurture it.
No, I think about, I have a friend, she's like in a yoga, she was part of our community, Rosie Acosta. She, what is her? It's, on, oh my God.
Live, Love, Lead. Is that hers?
No, she's Radically Loved. That's it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I was just thinking of her and a couple other people for you, but it's definitely a nice thing to share. And just, I think sometimes people just like to listen to people talking, to the chat. I know I do.
Yeah. I don't like as much structure. Because it feels like I want people to feel like they're part of the conversation.
Yeah, like I used to love Oprah's podcast, and it's just become so structured and full of commercials, and I can't even listen to it anymore.
Okay, we're getting ready to go back for our last segment.
All right, coming back in a couple seconds.
You're listening to Women Thriving Unapologetically with Lynsie McKeown. Have a question for Lynsie or her guests? Want to share your story? Email Lynsie at thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. That's thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. Now back to the show. Here again is Lynsie.
Welcome back to Women Thriving Unapologetically. We're having a conversation with Leah Kinsella, and this segment of the show we're going to dedicate to all, I want to say all the busy moms, but just how about just all the busy women? Because, I'm not a mother, but I am birthing my business, and I put a tremendous amount of time and effort into it. And it feels like I'm constantly juggling a million things. And so how do we make the space and the time when we just feel like there is no space and time?
Mm-hmm. I feel like a vice grip, right? Yeah. How do we make the space and time when we feel like there's no space and time? It's sometimes it's just that mindset right there that keeps us from getting anything in, because it's a habit. I think it's a habit. It's like, especially if you're working or not, or maybe full-time moms, it's a lot, whether between schools and or parks and the, the nap time and the grocery store and, running a household. And then you're tired.
You have
You're
a toddler.
I do have a toddler. I do. And I'm a domestic type of woman. I actually like, I like cooking. I like cleaning. I like it. I say that I find it's just part of it's just what I do, So, and then especially in the beginning when my son was really little, now he'll be 2 next month, but like, I was just tired. I was tired. I would sit, I would try to meditate. And I think I was mentioning to you earlier, like 5 minutes, I was lucky if I got in 5 minutes, and I would often do it when he would nap because he was an early waker. He would wake up at like 5:30, and I'm not an early waker. So I was just flat out tired. And so, yeah, adding in something like that it can feel a bit daunting. But I may be in a slightly different position because I had a previous practice. So to me, I was like, no, I want to, even though I'm tired, carve out 10, 15 minutes. So for the women that are like, I can't, then that's a little harder, because that already that word, I can't, that mindset, I can't, is going to create a lot of resistance. So if you're listening to, this show, if you're reading books or you're doing things and you're curious about it, then I really believe there's part of you that can, because you wouldn't be diving into this stuff if you weren't interested in it. There's part of you that wants to do it. So for those of you that you're curious, you're doing the stuff, you're looking at you're in your favorite Instagram feed is like positive psychology. Well, maybe, put down the phone for 5 minutes and just sit down and breathe for 5 minutes. It's really carving out. It doesn't have to be a lot of time. Like I said, it really doesn't. I really recommend doing it when it works for you. If we were going to be really, really, really traditional, it's like sunrise and sunset. But these days, like I said, we live in a multi-busy, faceted world. So carving out the time for ourselves is ultimately carving out the time for your family or for your partners or for your business. I know I'm way more creative and I can write better if I have taken 15 minutes and done some sort of, 75 breath practice or something. And often I listen. I don't do them all myself. I use Yoga International. That's just the website that I like, or I use, my own stuff, and I'll just plug it in 15 minutes. I give myself some time. It really, really makes a big difference. But again, I have the past in that. So if I feel like for those who say like, I can't, then, if you're listening to this, part of you wants to. So maybe just start to reframe and reach out to me, reach out to Lynsie, reach out to people who can guide you through the I can, and let's figure out a way that it's going to benefit you. Like, why? Look at your why. How could meditation benefit you? Look at your life and talk about to yourself, it could benefit me XYZ. Those are your reasons. All right, let's move forward.
Yeah. And then with understanding what your why is, then you can create the practices, and not understanding what your lifestyle is like, you can create the practices that will be the most supportive, and really changing the language to something that's empowering and not disempowering, because can't just, it's like a door slam.
It's a door slam. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you've been able to, like, through meditation, been able to get a lot of clarity and inspiration that came through. And one of those inspirations was your pregnancy deck. So this is I've never had a child, way past ever having, never wanted one, but I'm too old now too. But this Oracle deck is gorgeous. I was like, oh, I want it, but it's kind of weird if I buy it. I want to give it as a gift to all the mamas out there. Tell us about this Oracle deck, and what is an Oracle deck?
What I know, right? What is an Oracle deck? Well, most people know what tarot is, and tarot is it's a very set, regimented number of cards that's based on an old deck that was created in the 1400s in Italy. So it's like a sequence, a set of cards. Oracle decks are much broader. They can really be about anything. They could be about, like mine is about pregnancy, and they usually include positive affirmations, pictures, beautiful images. My deck in particular is called the pregnancy deck, and it has 40 cards representing the 40 weeks of pregnancy. And this deck sort of came to me, and I was pregnant for the first time, and it was during like the middle of the lockdown. I wasn't teaching, everything was like stopped. And I was, I think, like 4 months pregnant, and I decided to sign up for the Vishoka Meditation teacher training, which was online, because I was like, well, I'm going to do something, and I'm pregnant, and it might be kind of cool to, really dive into a deeper meditation practice. And in that space of being pregnant and meditating a lot, it arose. It literally like came to me, and I was like, I'm going to create a pregnancy oracle deck. And so then I started like researching, because I was like, maybe it's already out there, nothing was there. Like the URL was available, the Instagram handle was available. And then I was like, this is kind of weird, but I'm going to go with it. And I like wrote the whole thing. I was just like, I swear my grandmother like just came to me and was like, this is it. Like I wrote it so fast. But then obviously I had to learn how to like design it, how to hire an artist, there was so many, it took like almost 2 years from that first inception of actually getting it delivered. But the deck was birthed during a time when I was really literally fertile, literally creating a life, and also going into these 45-minute deep meditation practice. Like I loved meditating while I was pregnant. I highly recommend it to anyone while you're pregnant. If I can help you, I want to, because your energy is just so rich, and like you're literally birthing, you're creating a human. And so you've got all this like nourishment. And if you let yourself sit in it and look at it, like from your third eye, from your higher self, it's freaking cool. It's really, really, really cool. And so the deck for me, it's 40 cards. It's the 5 senses, because I feel like our senses are so heightened when we're pregnant. It's our 5 emotions, because I also feel like our emotions are quite heightened. It's 5 meditations, affirmations, and then the 9 months, and then the 5 elements. Because I also feel like our energy is very connected to everything around us, the earth, air, water. And we're multi-dimensional beings, and our pregnancy is definitely a multi-dimensional experience. So that came about. Yeah.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that story of how you're just 4 months pregnant, and this time where it's lockdown, and you dive into like really deep meditation, and it's as if you could just, the insight was just able to pour into you, maybe through your grandmother, and just all that wisdom came through, and you're just able to write it down. That's like real, true inspiration, is when you can just like be that channel for that guidance. And then the discipline and the commitment to stay with it for 2 years too. And
That
I
was a
think
big
that's also
one.
reflective of having a disciplined practice of meditation teaches us how to be disciplined in other areas of our life, and staying committed to the inspiration that comes through. And so how can women grab a deck?
Yeah, there's many ways. If Instagram's easy for you, just go to the pregnancy deck. Thepregnancydeck.com is a Shopify website. You can get it on Etsy, the pregnancy deck. You can go to my website, leahkinsella.com, and there's a link to the pregnancy deck. So either Etsy, thepregnancydeck.com, Instagram, or my website, leahkinsella.com.
Yeah. And also on your website, you have little meditations that people can try out, and they can experience what it's like to meditate with you. And they can also reach out to you and, get your guidance as a coach if they're wanting to go a little bit deeper and have some personalized practices for themselves. And so we only have a couple minutes left, and I'd love to ask you, like, what does thriving mean to you?
Thriving now in my 40s is self-acceptance, self-love, being in the present, and allowing, and really taking risks to me. It might be like putting out the pregnancy deck. It might be coming on this radio show, and having a really strong sankalpa, which I know we didn't get to go into, but mine these days is I'm proud of myself. Like, that's it. So every time I do something, I'm proud of myself for waking up a little earlier this morning and doing my meditation practice. I'm proud of myself for, whatever it might be. But my thriving these days is full self-acceptance. And then my actions are literally like happening around that. And yeah, just like a lot of gratitude. Yeah.
And just so you know, Sankalpa is just very brief, is just this higher, this statement, this vow that we make to ourselves that really is the guide, one of the guideposts for us, is the guiding force through our life. And, I'm doing my Sankalpa this year that I'm working with is I nourish myself, because I know I need that, when I'm deeply nourished, everything can come from that needs to come from that.
Yeah.
And so thank you so much, Leah. This has been such a great conversation. And I'm so honored that you came on and shared, because you are an incredible woman. You are an incredible teacher, and your gifts really need to be shared with more people. So I highly recommend that you reach out to Leah and either get her pregnancy deck, because I'm sure it's infused with amazing insights and wisdoms and practices, but also reaching out and let her guide you into really having that self-compassion for yourself, the love, and just really being really comfortable with who you are and have that sense of peace that's uniquely yours. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And so leahkinsella.com or the pregnancy deck.com or Insight Timer by the same names. And then we'll be back here next week with I'm Amy Reich. I almost forgot who was coming on next week. And so be sure to join us here every Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or of course, you can always listen on demand and just find that on the Voice America Empowerment channel. And you can also reach out to me at any time if you want to be on the show or have questions or about any shows that we have done at thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. And we'll see you next week. Much love.
All right. Excellent job today. Good show. We're all clear.
Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. How do you feel?
Good. That went by so quickly.
It goes by so fast. I mean, I feel like this show went by faster than most because it's a topic that we both just like. I mean, I love all the topics. I mean, all the guests on the show have been incredible, but I think it's because we also know each other.
Yeah.
And,
I had a feeling
together for a while.
easy. Yeah. No, we're good. We like talking to one another. And I'm probably easy in that sense, or I just like, I'm a talker.
No, I appreciate that, because as a radio host, the last thing you want is to have a guest that doesn't talk.
Right. Oh my God, that's so hard. Yeah. I think in life sometimes, even when certain people, you ask them a question, yes, no, it's like, oh man, come on. Give me a little more.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit stop on the recording.